Dick Cavett was once called the smart person's talk show host. He talked with Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Muhammad Ali. He made Nixon so mad that the president said his name 26 times on the Watergate tapes. But somewhere along the way, things started to go wrong. A guest died right in front of him on live TV. His wife of 42 years got taken by cancer. A fire burned down the homes they built together. And in 2020, when he was 83, something happened that changed everything once more. The guy who asked questions for decades now faces questions he can't answer. Dick Cavett's story starts with a little mix-up that stuck with him his whole life. He was born on November 19, 1936. Everyone agrees the county was Buffalo County in Nebraska. But no one agrees on the towns. His birth certificate says Kearney, but his family lived in Gibbon. The mix-up happened because Gibbon had no hospital, so his mom went to Kearney to have him. It sounds easy, but even now books argue about it. Some say Gibbon, some say Kearney. Cavett himself gave different answers depending on who asked, which made it even more mysterious. And that tiny thing, the kind most people forget, turned into one of the biggest debates about his early days. His childhood kept changing just like that birth story. His parents, Arable Richards and Alva Cavett, were school teachers who moved wherever jobs came up. First Comstock, then Gibbon, then Grand Island. Every new school year felt like a new town. When Dick was still really young, the family stayed in Grand Island long enough for him to start kindergarten at Wasmer Elementary. 3 years later, both parents got better teaching jobs in Lincoln. So the family packed up again. There he spent the rest of his school years going through Capital, Prescott, and Irving before getting to Lincoln High. Those constant moves shaped him. They made him good at changing. They made him super curious. They taught him how to read a room, something he later did so easily as an interviewer. But everything changed in 1946. Dick was only 10 when his mom died of cancer at 36. It happened fast and left a big scar that never went away. Her being gone hung over him during the years he needed her most, and it changed how he listened to people. He got really sensitive to sadness and stories of loss because he felt those things so young. Many years later, when guests shared deep stuff on his show, they could tell he really got what pain felt like. That connection came from this early sadness, a hurt that shaped the calm, serious side under his funny jokes. Life kept changing after that. His dad, Alva, married Dorcas Dand in the late 1940s, another teacher from Lincoln. Together, they became well-known and loved in local schools by lots of students over the years. Their impact was so big that on September 24, 1995, a new elementary school got named the Dorcas C. and Alva B. Cavett Elementary School. Old students and city leaders came to the opening ceremony, remembering how those two teachers quietly helped shape the city's kids for decades. For Dick, that moment felt like a thank you to the home he grew up in. A home full of books, lessons, and the idea that learning really matters. Through all this, something surprising was happening. Dick Cavett, small but super focused, was turning into an athlete. His dad thought he was too skinny for football or basketball, so he tried gymnastics. He got good at it fast. By the early 1950s, he became Nebraska's state gymnastics champion, best at the pommel horse. It was a tough event that needed perfect balance and control, things he practiced every single day. In 1954, he won the state title. That win pushed him ahead in ways he didn't even know yet, giving him confidence he later brought to TV. School was another place where he did great. He went to Lincoln High School, graduating in 1954 with a name bigger than just sports. People said his IQ was the highest ever in the Lincoln public schools. Teachers saw how curious he was. The classmates loved his charm. He became student council president and even ran a live Saturday morning radio show for the junior league. He knew classmates like Sandy Dennis, who later became a famous actress. His wins showed what his parents taught him, and those lessons took him towards something even bigger. While people saw the athlete and the smart kid, something else was growing quietly. Dick Cavett had a secret love for magic. As a kid, he did tricks for friends and slowly made it a little job. By his teen years, he earned $35 a night doing magic shows. Local magician Gene Glory helped him, teaching him to make every trick perfect. In 1952, when Cavett was 15, he went to the International Brotherhood of Magicians convention in St. Louis and won the Best New Performer trophy. His magic act had card tricks and bright scarves. Those early shows taught him how to stand in front of people and pull them in. One day at a magic event in Lincoln, he even met Johnny Carson, who was 11 years older. Neither knew then how much their lives would connect in TV history. All that hard work mixed with fun trouble. And somewhere along the way, Cavett joined friends in whitewashing the William Jennings Bryan statue at the Nebraska State Capitol. He was about 16 when it happened. The prank made a big fuss because the statue honored one of Nebraska's most important political people. Cavett later admitted it with a smile, calling it silly teenage stuff. But the prank showed another side of him, a fun rebellious streak that later came out in his sharp interview jokes. Even before he finished high school, entertainment had him hooked. He directed a radio show by 8th grade. He acted in school plays. He did magic at small events. Student council, theater, gymnastics, comedy, magic, radio. Everything pointed him toward a life in front of people. He didn't know it yet, but he was making the path that would take him to television. In 1954, he took his next big step. He went to Yale, leaving Nebraska with a scholarship and a train ticket. His parents made regular teacher pay, so their son going to an Ivy League school felt almost like a dream. Cavett got on a midnight train out of Lincoln, went through Chicago, and finally got to New York. When he asked nervously what if the work was too hard, his parents told him he could do it, and soon he showed he fit right in. He made the dean's list his freshman year. Yale had lots of rich kids who asked things like, "Where did you prep?" Cavett just said, "I didn't prep, I hide." He kept studying, kept learning, and found a new world mixing brains with chances. But during that same freshman year, something dark came into his life. Around age 18, he had his first bad depression. It started small but got so heavy that getting out of bed felt impossible. He thought about going home. He felt empty, alone, too much. Later, he said it felt like a sick dog wanting to be left alone. It got so bad he went to the hospital under a fake name. He even had times when he thought about ending his life. That first time started a fight he dealt with his whole life, mostly keeping it secret for years. It showed that even a super smart, sure young guy could have big inner fights. Still, he kept going. At Yale, he jumped into drama and comedy. He did stuff on the campus radio station WYBC and threw himself into school plays. In his last year, he changed his major from English to drama and graduated in 1958. He was in plays like The Crucible, acting with so much feeling that his friends were impressed. He directed shows. He studied scripts. He watched actors carefully. Those times taught him about stories, rhythm, and timing. Alongside the theater world, he was building a different skill. He got into Yale's comedy world, making smart, funny stuff that felt different from other comedians. He learned from professors around him, especially philosopher Paul Weiss, who made students think hard and talk clear. Cavett took that style into every interview he ever did. He asked questions no one else thought of. He mixed deep thinking with charm, serious with funny. Dick Cavett's start in show business didn't look easy at first. In the early 1960s, he was just a copy boy at Time magazine, doing small jobs and making barely enough for a tiny room in Manhattan. But the jobs gave him what he needed. It put him near the world he wanted and left quiet time to write jokes after work. One day while looking through the magazine, he read about Jack Parr having trouble with jokes for The Tonight Show. Those words stuck in his head. They kept going around until he wrote some jokes, put them in a time envelope, and walked right into the RCA building like he belonged. As he went down the hall, he suddenly saw Parr right there. Cavett got all his courage and held out the envelope. Parr looked at it and said, "All right, kid," in a tired voice, then walked on. Cavett sat in the audience that night, wondering if it would matter, and slowly he saw Parr using his jokes. Each joke felt like a spark lighting him up. And from that night, his life started going a new way. That brave move became the moment he always remembered. He thought about how scared he felt giving the envelope to Parr, and how it seemed too lucky when the jokes went on air. Parr didn't give big thanks, but he remembered those words, "All right, kid." Every time he thought how close he came to walking away without trying, those jokes got him a job writing for Parr's show in 1960. Suddenly, he wrote 5 days a week, making jokes for the most watched part of the show. He learned how quick live TV is, and how a joke dies if it's even a second late. The fast pace made him tougher, and he met people who opened more doors. By the time Parr left in 1962, Cavett wasn't an outsider anymore. He had shown he could keep up. When Johnny Carson took over The Tonight Show in 1962, Cavett went with him and became one of the first head writers. His job changed from just jokes to leading other writers, making sure every line fit Carson's style and timing. Carson's way made Cavett think quicker and sharper. He had to match a new beat and write funny stuff for the whole country. He stayed with Carson until 1964 and left with lessons he used forever. Those years gave him real TV trust, and that trust could do things talent alone couldn't. During the same time, he wrote for someone he loved since he was little. Groucho Marx guest hosted The Tonight Show for a bit, and Cavett gave him funny lines. The experience amazed him. Marx was in his 70s and already a legend. Yet he was kind to Cavett and even gave advice. Cavett remembered how seeing Marx say a line felt deeper than Parr or Carson reading his jokes. Their friendship grew over years, and in 1972, Cavett introduced Marx at Carnegie Hall, giving the legend a stage with young fans. Working with Marx taught Cavett how interviews live and breathe, and how comedy timing can make a moment longer or shorter. He took that lesson into every talk he ever did on TV. His life away from the studio kept going too. On June 4, 1964, he married Carrie Nye, an actress he met at Yale. She had quick, funny thoughts and a stage style like Tallulah Bankhead, and Cavett loved how hard she worked. Their marriage lasted more than 40 years until she died in 2006. Cavett often talked about how she picked roles carefully and how steady she was in a busy world. They never had kids, but their team stayed strong, built on respect and quiet help. Her last acting job was in 2003, on The Guiding Light, written by their friend Ellen Weston. And Cavett often said how proud he felt seeing her work. Around the same time, they made their life together. They also bought a place that became part of their story. In the mid-1960s, they bought Tick Hall, an 1883 shingle-style cottage in Montauk. The house sat on almost 20 acres with 900 feet of Atlantic Ocean beach. It was part of a group of old homes called the Seven Sisters and listed on the National Register of Historic Places. When the original house burned in 1997, Cavett and Nye rebuilt it exactly the same, a story shown in a 2003 documentary called From the Ashes. The new house was about 6,500 square feet with 6 bedrooms, and the place sold for $23.6 million in 2021. Cavett often said how the house held memories of their early marriage, and rebuilding it felt like saving those memories. Everything changed again in 1968 when ABC gave him his own show. He had written behind the scenes for Parr, Carson, and Merv Griffin, but this felt like a whole new world. His show started on March 4, 1968, with Buckminster Fuller as the first guest. It was called This Morning and went 90 minutes, mixing news talk with comedy. Aimed at young housewives, it had Bobby Rosengarten leading the band. Viewers quickly saw how different Cavett was from other hosts. His talks went into deep thoughts, and guests loved his real curiosity. The show moved to prime time and even went up against Carson. Slowly, Cavett became a name everyone knew. The Dick Cavett Show turned into something special on TV. It gave people real talks instead of just shows and big ideas instead of quick jokes. Cavett had Gore Vidal, Muhammad Ali, Angela Lansbury, Patricia Neal, and lots more, and every episode felt like a calm break in a world of fast laughs. His first chat with Buckminster Fuller went deep into politics and tech and set the feel for his show. Sometimes ABC wanted bigger stars, but shows without huge names sometimes got even better ratings. His thoughtful way made the show different in a world of loud hosts. People started calling him the thinking person's host. His interviews felt real and deep, and he knew how to help a guest show something true. He could talk to rock stars, politicians, and smart people with the same calm interest. His show went head-to-head with Carson, but he wasn't trying to beat Carson's funny. He was making something different, something slower and more wondering. That difference gave him a special spot in TV forever. Then came one of the weirdest things TV ever saw. On June 8, 1971, Jerome Rodale, a leader in organic food, came on Cavett's show. After his talk, Rodale sat next to Pete Hamill and said he was so healthy he would live forever. Moments later, he leaned back like he was resting and made a snoring noise. Cavett thought it was a joke at first, but something felt off. He asked if a doctor was in the crowd. 2 doctors ran up and tried CPR and mouth-to-mouth, but Rodale was dead at Roosevelt Hospital at age 72. The episode never went on air. Only Cavett had a copy, and no one saw the tape, making it a spooky mystery. Another moment made its own place in TV history. On December 18, 1970, Georgia Governor Lester Maddox came on to talk segregation with Truman Capote and Jim Brown. Cavett mentioned the bigots who voted for Maddox, and that one word made him furious. Maddox stood up and walked off the set. Without looking back, ABC bosses wanted the cameras stopped, but Cavett kept them going. The moment caught the real tension of those times. The New York Times wrote how fast Maddox left and how he wanted an apology. The walk-off became one of the most talked-about talk show moments ever. The Rodell thing made another strange twist. Even though it never aired, hundreds of people swore they saw it. Experts said it's the false memory thing, where brains fill in blanks with made-up stuff. Cavett explained himself that the show never broadcast. Still, people said they watched it. Documentaries talked about the lost episode, and the story grew into its own legend. Jimi Hendrix walked onto the Dick Cavett show on September 18, 1970. He carried the calm of someone who had lived a lot already, playing guitar soft in a way that surprised people who only knew his loud side. And when he talked with Cavett after, his voice sounded deep and thoughtful in a way fans hardly heard. He talked about Woodstock and how people still asked about that day. He tried to say how heavy it felt standing there with the whole world watching. He admitted constant touring wore him out more than anyone knew, and being called a guitar legend sometimes felt heavy instead of great. Cavett listened with quiet respect, and the talk flowed easy across the room. No one in the studio knew this was one of his last public times. The show aired just days before his death on September 25, 1970, at only 27. People later said his calm that day made the talk feel spooky, like he spoke from a place between amazing and falling apart. Janis Joplin had her last interview on the same show a bit earlier on August 3, 1970, and she brought a different fire. She came out with her usual mix of wild energy and soft heart, singing full out and laughing with Cavett in a way she didn't do with most interviewers. She talked about how music was changing and concerts getting more violent, which scared her. She said the music business upset her, but Cavett felt safe. She called him a friend right on camera, and he smiled like he really got it. 2 months later, on October 4, 1970, she died at 27 from an accidental heroin overdose. That last talk stayed in people's minds because it showed a woman who still loved music even as the world hurt her spirit. Cavett and Joplin had a friendship that went past the cameras. They sometimes left the studio together, got dinner, and talked late into the night about life. Cavett said she would light what he called with a joke a special cigarette, and they would have those long talks that open up the world. She trusted him so much she told other rock stars to go on his show, saying he wasn't boring or stuck up like some hosts. That trust showed on screen every time she came back. She looked relaxed. She looked understood. And Cavett later said their friendship changed the show in ways he never expected. During her last time, Janis shared even more. She talked about violence at concerts, how the business side of music became a big annoyance she couldn't get away from, and how tough it was to carry what everyone expected. She was only 27, but her words felt like someone much older, someone pushed too many ways. Cavett listened and called her his little songbird with warm admiration that made the room softer. That interview lived on for years because it caught not just a singer, but a woman still fighting for her music even as the world kept hurting her. Cavett had a special way with musicians that few hosts ever had. He treated them like real people, not just stars, and talked with respect instead of being scared or fake nice. This made artists like Hendrix and Joplin open up like nowhere else. His funny lines came in soft. His care felt true, and it made a space where real talk happened easy. Musicians trusted him because he didn't act for them. He talked with them. That small change in how he acted built real friendships and made his interviews famous. But Cavett's openness had a price. In the early 1970s, he landed on Richard Nixon's enemies list. His show often had anti-war people, which made the White House mad enough that Nixon said Cavett's name 26 times on the Watergate tapes. In June 1971, after a big argument between John Kerry and John O'Neill, Nixon asked if they could hurt Cavett's career somehow. The anger got worse when Cavett had Daniel Ellsberg on to talk about the Pentagon Papers, an episode that got over 12 million watchers. Cavett refused to stay away from tough guests, and that strong choice made him a surprise symbol against power. One of the biggest talked-about moments from that time happened on June 30th, 1971, when John Kerry debated John O'Neill on Cavett's stage. Kerry's calm answers cut through the Vietnam War noise, while O'Neill had trouble answering without sounding fake. The public felt things change. Even news people said Kerry had the edge because he spoke as both a war vet and an activist. Nixon heard a th. He debate on the tapes and got madder every second. The moment turned public feelings and happened right on Cavett's show. December 15, 1971, brought another wild storm when Norman Mailer and Gore Vidal came on. Their fight already exploded backstage where Mailer headbutted Vidal, and the bad feeling followed to the stage. They threw insults like punches. Mailer bragged about his brains. Vidal laughed and said words failed Norman Mailer. Cavett tried to keep things going, but ended up adding his own sharp lines to the fight. The clash filled newspapers the next day, mixing funny and mean in TV history. In February 1971, Cavett fought ABC over a two-part show about pornography. The network tried to cut the words oral genital sex from the first air. Cavett pushed back, saying the cut wasn't needed. The very next night, he said the phrase on purpose while telling viewers what happened. This time, ABC let it stay. The moment got big attention because it showed a late-night host ready to fight rules right in front of everyone. Stories about Cavett even touched legends like Frank Sinatra. One rumor said Sinatra demanded the network fire Cavett's head writer before he would ever come on. Cavett never said if it was true, but joked that if so, the interview became the most expensive one never done. Sinatra never came on, but Cavett kept having brave guests, the kind who liked hard talks. By the mid-1970s, Cavett's big time started to slow. ABC canceled his show in 1975. And though he went to PBS, USA Network, and CNBC, he never got back to the same huge fame. People wanted louder, faster shows, and his calm, smart style got harder to sell. Even so, he never quit. He kept writing, kept talking, and kept showing up where deep talks still counted. In 1980, his life turned sharp again. While getting on a Concorde flight, he had a really bad depression attack. His body shook. He sweated a lot, and they had to take him off the plane. Doctors at Columbia Presbyterian said major depression, and he later had electroconvulsive therapy. When he woke up from it, he told his wife he felt back in the world. That time made him talk openly about mental health, helping take away some shame people feel about depression. Then came March 18, 1997, when a fire burned Tick Hall, the Montauk home he shared with Carrie Nye. Flames went through fast, leaving only a brick chimney. Letters, signed books, Oni Cole's tap shoes, photos, memories, everything gone in one afternoon. Cavett said the loss hit him harder than anything before, ending a part of life that couldn't come back. Carrie wouldn't let it end. She said rebuild it exactly the same. With no plans and almost no pictures left, she used memory, ashes, and tiny bits that survived. Architect James Hadley and caretaker Gregory Donahue worked with her, and in time Tick Hall came back. A documentary called From the Ashes showed the whole rebuild, full of love and hard work in every part. On July 14, 2006, Carrie Nye died at 69 from lung cancer. Cavett said her years of smoking finally caught her. Even though she tried to stop many times, her death ended a 42-year marriage full of funny talk, creative days, and deep love. He carried that sadness quietly, and it shaped his later years. In 2010, he married author Martha Rogers in New Orleans. The marriage brought calm back to his life. He became stepdad to her 2 kids, and they made a quieter life in Connecticut. He found fresh meaning in writing and talking, keeping his brain active even as getting older slowed him a bit. In 2020, Cavett had a stroke at 83. It took some of his movement and made him use a walker or cane. He joked later that he didn't feel broken forever even though it changed things. He stayed quick in his mind, maybe quicker than people thought, and he kept talking about getting through tough times with the same dry, funny way that always defined him. In 2021, he sold Tick Hall for $23.6 million. The first price was $62 million. But after 6 years for sale, he took the offer. It was more than selling a house. It was saying goodbye. The house held happy times and sad ones, and letting go closed another big chapter. Celebrities walked its rooms, ocean winds touched its walls, and memories stuck in every corner. Now it belongs to someone new, leaving Cavett to hold only what the years put inside him.